there's one aspect of a transaction that's very prevalent these days, and that is finding a way to bridge the valuation gap between the buyer and the seller. Hi, everybody. My name is kdee, President of Osage Advisors. Thank you for being with us today. For this week's Big Hurdle, part of our podcast series, The Ins and Outs of Selling a Business. And so what is that tool that's used, mechanism used to help you bridge that valuation gap? And a lot of sellers, when we comes into the conversation, almost think it's the enemy, right? I don't want to do that. And what we're talking about here is the earnout, a component of the transaction that will allow you to get where you need to be based on the future performance of the business, right? It's a contingent payment. And we've all heard the horror stories. Well, my buddy had an earnout and he got screwed, right? Excuse the language. He got screwed on this. But, for every time you hear that story, there's probably 100 that where the earnout, it worked and the buyer and the seller agreed to it and there was a payday down the road. And it's very prevalent today. And you need to expect some portion of the transaction to be in a contingent payment or earnout. The key thing is how you structure it, how you document it, and what it's based on. As I said in prior podcasts and conversations, that we are in uncertain times. Things are changing dynamically every day. Buyers are skeptical. Things are out of their control. Geopolitical things have been prevalent for the last 5-6 years, including COVID. And so the way, say, look, we want to pay you the money, but we need to protect our investors or protect our company. So, prove it to us. We'll set the bar. We'll set the earnout structure. So over the next 1 to 3 years, if you hit these numbers, we're happy to pay you. The seller mindset, which I think is incorrect. Well, they just want to, they're going to find ways not to pay me the earnout, right? That's the first reaction. I understand it. You have the right to be skeptical, but I take a different position. They want to pay you the earnout because if you hit those numbers, the value of the business is going up and they're getting a better return on their money. So you look at the earnout, you don't want to be a long earnout, right? I mean, I'd say we just did 3 of our last 4 deals had earnouts, and they were typically, 1 to 2 year earnouts. Okay. Based on sales growth or EBITDA growth. So, and those targets were set based on what we provided to them as our growth strategy. That we're going to do 20 million this year, and by 2027 or 28, we're going to do 30 million, right? So I said, fine. If you get to 30 million, we're happy to pay you a big number, but you need to get there. So, and depending on whether or not you stay with the business during that time frame, where you have, even though you don't have ownership control, you have operation control, right? You're still the CEO of the business. So you are actively, directly impacting that strategy. Maybe you're leaving the business, and so the way the earnout has to be structured needs to be really a very top line number, like revenue, right? Revenue is easy to audit and adjust and talk about, right? Revenue is, okay, I build a 50 million, I hit 50 million, you pay me so much money. So it's a high number, easy auditable, and you can protect yourself. The way the earnout's calculated, giving yourself rights to audit the books, continuing on employment to oversee it. It is a tool that's used right now to bridge out uncertainty in the marketplace. And as business owners, your first reaction is going to be, I don't want an earnout, right? But that's not the market today. Earnouts are used to bridge that valuation gap to get you what you need, what you're looking for, what your family is. And if it's properly structured, if it's properly documented, if you're continuing on with the business, it will get you to a place you want to be. the buyer who's providing earnout, you need to know that they have a history of paying on these, right? So depending on the buyer, you can talk to other companies they bought and said how to work for them. And there's ways to mitigate that your concern about the earnout payment to get you comfortable as possible. Your lawyers will document it. The way we structure it will give you some clarity to it and some comfort with it. And then understanding the buyer that you're doing a deal with, that they have a history of meeting their obligations under earnout provisions and other deals should put you in a position where you're never going to get 100% comfortable. But at least you get to your point like, okay, I can move forward with this transaction. So you need to look at this from a perspective, or I recommend you look at this perspective that you anticipate that an earnout will be part of it and have that dialogue with your advisors. Like Osage, we spend a lot of time talking to our clients about how to structure earnouts, what we see in the marketplace, documenting, memorializing them in legal documents. Anticipate that the earnout will likely be part of a transaction because there's no certainty of what looks like the market's going to look like a year from now. There's too many things going on. There's too many things happening in the last 5 years. This is a way to bridge that gap. It will help you get to a deal that works for you. If you enjoyed this podcast, please click the link below. We talked about earnouts and other podcasts, as well as other ways of structuring transactions. Again, my name is kdee, President of Osage Advisors. Thank you for being with us today for this week's Big Hurdle, and I hope you have a great day.